Welcome to another episode of Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Back at it, episode number 61. Mike Traster, Simon Fuller. Thank you for joining us today. We sure do appreciate you. And, we hope you've been with us most of the journey, but if you're just picking it up, a little bit about our story, Reclaiming Timeless Ways. It is trying to capture the essence of that. You know, the not that today is bad, but remember the good old days, so they say, and how they're supposed to be, used to be, common human decency and doing what's right. That's the core essence of our episodes. And Mike, today's topic to pick up on that is?
News, or what we're told is news.
Is there any decency in news, Mike? And I don't want to take a pot shot because, of course, I work in a business that has news, but boy, this could be a big topic to unwrap here, Mike.
When you turn on the TV and you go from 2, 3, 4 major networks, and they're all speaking full sentences that are 100% echoes of one another, these scumbags are all bought and paid for. They're 100% sold out and corrupt, and they're a lethal danger to our republic.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I didn't have any time really before the show to really think about the topic, but my gut reaction to that, Mike, I'm in a business and industry that actually local news is a piece of it. And it's funny, one of my really good buddies and business partner has spent years as a news director. And we've had these conversations over the years about how that was an industry, a business, when he got involved in it 20 plus years ago.
Right.
So not even that long ago, really, in the grand scheme, there's a certain precedence, almost a code of conduct, a responsibility that came with that.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that many are held to a very high standard nowadays. When you say bought and paid for, there's a lot of corruption. I think a lot of individuals out there, no matter where you lean on various topics that are reported, can understand and would agree that you have to do some fact-finding yourself to find the true truth. You can't just flip on the news channel and expect that to be the truth. I was even watching, not that long ago, a Netflix show. And basically, many of you might know, is a very popular one. First, there was this show called Making a Murderer. And it was a show that was kind of basically showing how this gentleman caught a bad rap, could have been framed up. And maybe not. That's not for me to decide.
Sure.
But what you saw throughout this series was really a picture of how these individuals were really not given a fair shake. On the flip side, I saw this Candace Owens came out with sort of a rebuttal to that.
Okay.
And it wasn't so much to tell anybody what was right or wrong. It was showing you what that Netflix series left out.
Okay.
And they were very, very important facts and pieces of information that were left out. So in many respects, people were left believing one thing. They saw the other side and thought, oh my gosh, how could you leave that out? That is the point. As reporters, the news, it is our duty to give truths, not opinions, give facts, don't push agendas, let us decide. And I don't know that happens very often, Mike.
I think that has been written out of the script. And the whole problem is, I mean, in a sense, life is like a trial.
Yeah.
Right? Something happens, and then witnesses come along. At least they're called witnesses, or they call themselves witnesses, which means, or it's implied that they're neutral and objective.
Right.
But when a witness has a scripted story that they didn't script themselves, that it's coming from a higher place, a place of deep-rooted, rotting influence, that's not a legitimate witness anymore. They're not trustworthy. So the decisions that people make in their buying patterns, in their trust of government, in their trust of medicine, in their voting, in who they elect to school boards and things like that, they're all so horribly manipulated that they can't actually make competent choices. They can't.
Right.
They have had their ability to make rational choices deeply manipulated and corrupted. And that's the new news, which is not news at all. It's news.
Right.
You know, I mean, you almost get an image. You know, Richard Nixon, who is everybody's favorite villain, he had shifty eyes, a funny face with a long nose, right? His eyes were close together. He was paranoid. His eyes were always moving around, right? A deep voice, a 5 o'clock shadow, and he sort of had abrupt movements, right? He was like the perfect crook who had been cornered. He was probably 50 times more innocent than the average smooth politician who's on the surface. And I'm not saying Nixon was an innocent, but compared to these smooth performers of nowadays, like Bill Clinton, smooth, highly polished garbage, right? Smooth, right? Mirror finish, but what's underneath?
Yeah.
Anything you'd want in your dish? What's
Yeah.
that I smell? Did I step in something?
Yeah.
Bill, is that you? You know, smooth,
Yeah.
but treacherous.
Yeah.
Treacherous. So we're surrounded. The whole thing is the truth. Truth was put on the marketplace a long time ago, and it's like a snowball going down a cliff or a mountainside, picking up more snow. There's less truth and more momentum.
Yeah.
There's more influence. So the result is, in that respect, if you can't make personal decisions, let's say somebody they make a big project out of, this is the best place to live in America, wherever, right? And it turns out it's crime-ridden.
Yeah.
But the real estate people and the chambers of commerce don't want you to think that. So they change the facts. They tell the police not to record crimes, right? They'll just call them incidents, but not crimes. So they won't go on the federal crime statistics, right? All of a sudden, it's all cleaned up. The only problem is that's a goddamn lie.
Yeah. It's not cleaned up.
Right. And why do I say goddamn? Am I using the Lord's name in vain? Or am I saying this is such an outrageous lie that it is and will be damned by God?
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm using it in the religious sense to divin or to discern between right and obscenely wrong.
Right.
Right? It's not a sort of a kind of impolite lie. It's a goddamn lie.
Yeah.
You're stealing people's freedom, right? So when the Israelites left Egypt, when they got up and they walked out, right, in mass, several millions of them, see, there's a basic principle. It's a biblical principle, a spiritual principle. It's a principle of ethics that no man can own another man.
Right.
So they left.
Yeah.
They were not interested in being property.
Right.
Well, the reality is that when you turn on the news and they're lying to you about the safety and feasibility of electric cars, or they're lying to you about whether or not the jab is safe, or there's thousands of people dying from these bizarre clots and other things, right? And children are starting to come down with massive numbers of cardio, failures, like inflammation of the heart. Healthy children, right? You're being lied to. You're being programmed.
Yeah.
That's a goddamned lie.
Yeah.
God will not change because we want him to.
Right.
He won't. He can't. It's in his nature to not lie. Period. Ever.
Right.
Not for any amount of payout. So you can't, if you could fill Wisconsin with gold 12 miles high, the whole state of Wisconsin, and figure out a way to put it on wheels and deliver it to God, and you said, oh, all you got to do is just kind of wiggle and worm and squirm, and all this gold is yours.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Why? because God is true, right? So we're supposed to imitate that.
Right.
So if you live in a world where truth is truth and truth doesn't change, right? See, watch this. If truth changes, this is going to go somewhere or nowhere. Goes down. Why? Gravity pulled it back towards the center of the mass of the Earth, right? There's probably a more sophisticated explanation now in the last couple of months, but that's basically it. But so if you allow people to tell you that truth isn't truth, or that truth is relative, that truth is changeable, that we have to be reasonable and fit in with other people, or we're being judgmental, we're being mean-spirited, we're being hateful, you have just betrayed, you have abandoned and betrayed your family, your wife, your children, your friends, your neighbors. You have betrayed everyone and yourself.
Yeah.
There's nothing left. You might as well take them to the edge of a cliff and kick them in the ass.
And this show wasn't to make a point, Mike, about one political belief or the
No,
other, or one
no,
religious belief or the
no.
other. You know, those were some examples throughout. The point is what you just said. Truth is truth. That is one simple fact that we can all agree on, no matter where you stand on the aisle, what side of the aisle on all these different hot topics. Truth is truth. And if we individuals, news obviously being the title of the show, is held at a certain bar because they're supposed to report it, but we all are taking on information every day, Mike. I don't care if you're scrolling Facebook or social media of some sort of website. If we know, or even just chatting with a friend on the street, if there is something that we're regurgitating that we don't know to be true, we are culpable too.
We are.
Every one of us.
Right.
We're all delivering news
Right.
in one shape or form.
We are. It's because it's in our common conversation, because it's in our best interest to talk about something.
Right.
I remember I bought a set of tires from the big store, and they were great on dry road, and they were absolutely deadly dangerous on wet surfaces. And I remember going through an intersection, was it I-7, if you take that back road away from the big store, and I hit the brakes about 150 feet. I was going, 45 miles an hour. Went sliding through that intersection all the way across Highway 7 where there's a lot of big trucks. Thank God there was nothing there. So I find out that this company, Douglas, right, which was offshoot, it was like a low-end brand of Goodyear. Tires wear great. They occasionally blow up, but not too often. But they're not any good on slick roads. They're worthless, right? There was a little rain on the road, and man, it was like I was on ice skates.
Yeah.
It's horrible. So I contacted the store, and they all frowned at me. How dare you say anything critical? And so I pushed the issue. It finally cost me $200 to get a good set of 4 tires, which means I got a little bit screwed, you know, but at least I fixed the problem. My car became safer.
Sure.
So I got on the internet and I told hundreds, if not thousands, or many thousands of people or more.
Your experience, and it wasn't good.
Wasn't good. Wasn't good. And I found some other people with a very similar experience about that one particular tire. It was an all-season radial. It was inexpensive. It was like, I think it was like $260 for 4 tires mounted and balanced.
Yeah.
This is about 8 years ago. Maybe if you lived in Arizona where it rains 4 days a year, it would be wonderful.
Right.
Not here.
Yeah.
Deadly. And I'll tell you what, you would not believe the hostile silence I got every time I tried to talk about it with somebody at the big store, you know.
You know, and ultimately, Mike, I think we don't know who is going to watch this episode,
No.
but we do know that it's our individual duty, like you said, if we lie, by saying nothing, that's part of the problem. By regurgitating lies, it's even worse.
Right.
So it's each of our individual responsibilities to be truthful and right. And certainly in the offshoot chance that somebody from the news world picks us up, be ethical, be right.
Right.
You are an outlet that a lot of people rely on to make decisions. You started this episode talking about that.
Right.
When you mislead them, you do a lot more damage than maybe you know.
Yeah, if I say something like, you got to go along to get along, what I'm really saying is I'm a coward and I'm going to withhold the truth from you. It's going to hurt you, but I'm going to remain secure, and my security is more important than your survival.
Yeah.
Ooh. You're going to let me in your house with that kind of intention? What do the Buddhists say? Right thinking, right intention, right action. Now, tell me how those three things don't dovetail in with Christian ethics.
Right.
There's no difference whatsoever. None. Right thinking, right intention, right action, right? So if I withhold the, oh yeah, that dentist is great, and I know that son of a bitch drills teeth so thin and fills them so thick, right, that there's no more structure and the tooth is going to collapse in a couple of years because they're lazy and in a hurry, well, they're just no good, right? I need to say that to you.
Right.
Right? Maybe I don't sit outside with a sign. Maybe I do.
Yeah.
But I need to be truthful.
Right.
Or I remember there was a pair of docs in New York, brothers. They had a surgical practice. They had the best bedside manner imaginable. Somebody discovered that their patients were dying at an unusual rate. They found that it was easier to manage them by giving them a whole lot more anesthetic than the average doc was giving them. And so more people died because they were sensitive to the general anesthesia. And eventually that came out. I don't know what happened to them. Probably not much, unfortunately. But we're so afraid of being marginalized that we lie by silence or by directly lying.
Right.
That's outrageous.
And what's scary is when you say telling the truth makes you marginalized, which means you're in the minority of the individuals who will say the truth.
Right. Right.
That in of itself is a little bit disenchanting.
It should scare the living shit out of you for your children's futures.
Yeah. But each of us have another opportunity. I was listening to a Bible study once upon a time, and it was talking about, so what if you've done all these bad things, and there's a whole laundry list of things that maybe happened in your life or happened last week, and they said, but today's a new start. So the good news is, Mike, this isn't just coming down on everybody today, but it's opening the eyes to the responsibility and the opportunity that each of us have, whether we have or have not followed that
Right.
code of ethics.
Right.
You can start today.
Well, if we're friends, right? If you see me get an extra $10 from the cash, let's say we're standing in the line at Hy-Vee, and we're hanging out, we're going to go to a barbecue. And so we're standing in line together. She gives me $20 back. 2 tens are stuck together, and I'm like, And you go, Mike, what are you doing? That's not your money, right? So you're calling me up to keep to a higher level.
Right.
You're not condemning me.
Right.
But you are condemning my behavior.
Right.
Right? Why? Well, because you're my friend, right? So we're accountable to each other.
Sure we are.
And in that moment, I'm accountable to you because I'm screwing up,
Right.
right? So you owe it to me to tell me, and I owe it to you to listen,
Yeah.
right? You're not saying, God, Mike, I hate your shirt. That's qualitative. This is quantitative.
Right.
It's objective, right? It's like, when you take that money, you're stealing.
Right.
What the hell is wrong with you? Don't do that.
Yeah.
Hey, man, it's free money. No, it's stolen money.
Right.
right? So we are accountable, and part of being a friend means that you'd say to your friend, those cigarettes could, there's a high probability. I was thinking about this week. There was a guy that worked in conjunction with this psychiatric facility I worked for in Boston. His name was Ted. He was about 33 years old, dead from lung cancer. You got to ask yourself, how many people sat down, and he was very, very likable, very talented, you know, very skilled at what he did. A lot of people really loved the guy. Dead.
Yeah.
How many people sat down and tried to scare the unholy shit out of him? You're going to die if you do that, right? I don't think too many and not too often.
Yeah.
You have any idea how improper that is? This is news, right? The news is, you know, not I'm going to make you feel comfortable. The news is I'm going to try to save your life,
Sure.
right? So I just have a few things here. We're kind of going off on a tangent, but it's all okay because maybe this is even more important than my outline. I wrote things down here like outcome versus opportunity. So if we have an intended outcome, we're programming people.
Right.
We're not informing them.
Right.
We're using disinformation, right? Which is, you know, the Russians were famous for it. Would they have this news organization called Pravda? Pravda means truth, right? Well, they're obscene. So are our news people.
Yeah.
They have descended into that same pit,
Right.
right? So what's a narrative? A narrative is a story with a pre-decided outcome. If we all get together and say these same things in similar or identical words, we're going to manipulate tens of millions of people who are they're in the middle, and we're going to push them towards one direction or another.
We want to push them.
That's right. Now, so if you've got a 49-51 split, but you've got 10 million people, or 10%, who are mobile in the center, right? Those are the people you manipulate.
Yeah.
The rest of them are pretty stable, right? So that's a narrative. So again, when multiple sources say exactly the same words, you're being conned by criminals. Criminals.
Yeah.
Right? So the alphabet soup dynasty on TV and radio that all say, and this evening, you know, we discovered that, you know, news reporters, for example, I'm a Trump guy, right? And I think that he's being hung for things he was never tried for.
Yeah.
By people who don't like his policies because it disturbs their money flow in their club, right? Because tax base is a river of money. It's like liquid gold. Well, I can just take this massive bucket and make a program that's not going to ever get anything accomplished, and you can dip your ladle into it as much as you want. You're going to live real good. Just go along to get along.
Right.
I got you, buddy. Yeah. Wow. So you got hundreds of thousands, or maybe even a few million people in a country living that way. It causes profound suffering.
Right.
Right. Maybe make another program to help those people that you caused to suffer. Another fake program. All because the news is in cahoots. You know? There was a statement, I remember reading this years ago. It's in the Bible. It said you clean the inside of the cup. Right? And it's like, ooh, okay. The inside of the cup. What's a cup? I'm the cup.
Yeah.
You're the cup. You know, we're the cup. You know, we're the vessel that carries around what? The news. Real news is
Right.
the truth, right? Your tire is flat. Oh, it might not be flat tomorrow. We're going to just redefine flat. Really? So when the tire blows up and you get killed, because I told you the meaning of flat tire changed, did I maybe commit second-degree murder?
It is one of the greatest mysteries to me. Well, maybe not a mystery, but disappointments that, and both sides of the aisle, Mike. I see so much in the news that I feel I'm in a radio business. I have an FCC license that requires me to basically be a servant to the public. I have to do certain things
Right.
and act in such a manner with my programming and how I operate. And I just feel like there's not very much accountability, as that just is disappointing to me, because when somebody knowingly reports and sways these people because of a lie, as you called it, and it is,
Right.
there's no real recourse. There's no accountability. There's no jail served. There's no fines. In fact, many times they're
Is
getting
a reward.
Yeah, a reward.
Man, a basic, like a small lottery winning.
Yeah,
That much of a reward.
and that's. I hope that changes one day. We have a lot of good things in this fine country we live in, but that is definitely a sector that I think has strayed way far away from where news was not that long ago. The moral compass of a news reporter, somebody who gathered and delivered information that their fellow neighbor, brother, sister relied on to
So-
make decisions.
I was walking around this big church I belong to in Spokane, and I see a door, didn't know what was behind it. I was curious, so I went to open it if it was open. And I look inside, and there's a giant baptistry, and it's basically like a huge hot tub, right? It's not locked. Well, that's okay, What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, somebody could look at it, or you and I might decide, you or I might decide, oh, I'm going to go sit in the hot tub, right? That's fine. But what about a kid? Dead kid, right? So I went up to the pastor and I said, hey, you got a life-threatening danger here for children, right? Kind of like you don't leave a door to a set of stairs open in a nursing home
Right.
where there's people who don't have good balance or judgment, right? Because they fall down the stairs and die. And I told him, and he goes, it's been that way for years. So I went and I found an article, did a little research, took me 5 minutes, maybe 10, including parking the car and making a copy. And, it was like I wrote, children who died in a baptistry in a church from drowning, unattended, right, or unlocked. Why do you put a fence around a swimming pool?
Right.
There's no difference. There is no difference. Zero difference. Zero. Right? So I come into this meeting of members and elders and pastors, and I bring this up. And, the pastor, I don't remember exactly what happened, it was a long time ago, but he said something to the effect of, oh, we talked about that. We've never had a problem. I said, that doesn't mean you'll never have a problem.
Right.
And actually, it's like Russian roulette. Eventually,
You've just been lucky this long.
look, I handed him the article. So there's this little weasel sitting in this meeting, and he looks and he goes, closes his eyes. He's just this ass kisser from hell, right? And he goes, oh Lord, please guide us to know when to keep our mouths quiet. I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, you're kissing ass, even though the check is going to get extracted from the life of a young child. You're willing to write a check against their survival so you can kiss ass and cozy up to the pastor. You're not going to pay that check. That dead kid is going to pay it. Right? And I'm like, my eyes felt like coals. I wanted to shake him. I didn't express my anger to him because he wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
But I hope something good happened. So that was one. The other one, I had a patient, He was a doc, and he had had a head trauma going down a steep hill on a bicycle, and he hit something, and he flipped over and landed bang on his forehead. And he had a scar on his forehead like a softball cut in half, like there, the whole thing. And he was like a cartoon character, crazy, strapped in 5-point restraints, just screaming and flailing in these restraints, tall, lanky guy. And finally found out what was going on with him. Anyway, we became friends, and he got some meds changed, and he got in control of himself with the meds. And comes up to me one day, and he goes, Mike, he was very polite, sort of self-effacing. He goes, I know you're very busy. So he's apologizing about talking to me. And I'm like, Bob, I'm here for you. And he goes, well, I'll only take a minute. I said, I have all day. You're the reason why I'm here. And he goes, well, my doctor said something to me that disappointed me a little. Well, when Bob said it disappointed him, it was like there was a nuclear weapon that blew up 5 miles away. That's how understated he was. So I asked him, I said, what happened? And he goes, well, the doctor told me that because of my head injury, he said he came up to me and he goes, I've only got a moment, but there's something I have to tell you, and then I have to rush. He goes, okay. And he goes, you'll never practice medicine again. I suggest that you learn to be a dishwasher. Oh, gotta go. He might as well have pushed this guy in front of a moving train.
Yeah.
He wasn't sad. He was like on the edge of self-destruction, self-annihilation. So I brought him into this therapy room, and I told him, I said, your doctor's an imbecile. He's not morally capable of being a physician. He's supposed to be your protector and help you find solutions, not give you hopelessness. So I told him, I said, let me tell you something. I said, you need a neurological evaluation. Your psychiatrist is a bad doctor. He's an outrageously terrible psychiatrist. Yes, I'm going to get in trouble if you tell anybody I said this. No, I don't care. I care, but I care about you surviving more. Right? So I said, so I'm not going to ask you to do this. I'm going to tell you this is what you must do. That's very inappropriate for me to tell you you must. It's supposed to be your choice. But if I say it to you that way, Bob, you're not going to do it. I'll be polite, and I'll be walking along that little line politely, right? Not ruffling anybody's feathers, and you'll be dead.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be dead, Bob. I care about you. So you go and find the best neurologic clinic that there is, and you get a complete workup. Anyway, I went toe-to-toe with this doctor about a kid that he was also screwing up. Wound up costing me a job. The kid survived in spite of this doctor. Somebody calls me up one day, and they said, I've got news for you about Dr. Bob. And I'm like, oh, God, no. They said, no, it's good news. I'm like, really? I said, yeah. So what is it? They said they found a blockage in the area in the brain that holds the cerebrospinal fluid. And they went in there with a simple surgical procedure, put a little line in there called a shunt, got the pressure down. Dr. Bob is practicing medicine again. And I'm like, wow. You know, I acted on instinct because I knew what was right. I knew what was right, and I knew what was wrong.
Right.
And silence was wrong.
Right.
Inaction was wrong. Excessive politeness was wrong. All those things were me writing a check and signing it, drawing off of his account. And his account was him moving steadily and powerfully towards suicide. He lived another 30 years.
Yeah.
And he got to practice medicine again. You know,
so even those moments, I mean, we started with news, meaning the major outlets, but
Right.
it goes right down to you and I, our conversations every day and our moments every day.
Right, right. So that day, and his wife loved him dearly, and oh my God, he was daffy and inappropriate, and she put up with his craziness while he was getting fixed.
Yeah.
So they had a life.
Yeah.
They had 30 more years of life. He had 30 more years of practicing medicine or thereabouts, of earning a living, of helping people, you know? And the tipping point was, am I gonna cover my ass, or am I gonna tell him the truth? Because if I don't cover my ass, there's a very high probability that it's gonna cost me.
Right.
Now, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know what the cost to me was. He never wrote me a check and said, you saved my life, here's a year's pay or whatever. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. I did it because it was right.
Right.
And that makes me a damn fool,
Well,
according to common culture,
yeah.
right? So, now I'm no angel, but I knew how wrong that would have been.
Yeah.
So I did what I had to do. I had to do it. I had to do it, in spite of the fact that I knew it was going to cost me. And I hated that, but I had to. Not comfortable, it's not easy. It's not like opening up a candy bar. But when you have to, what do? You know? And we've been trained with all this bullshit to say, well, I don't have to, I could. Maybe, sort of. Somebody else can do it. I was honest 6 months ago. I got credit.
Yeah. Nope. Back to your Buddhist line. I mean, that's everything we do. You do it right,
Yeah,
or what you there believe to be.
right. And if we don't, we destroy our children. If we do not do that, we destroy our children. They wind up living in a sewer instead of swimming in clear water. And that kills them, dead.
So thank you for watching this episode. News, aka could have been called truth.
Yeah,
They should be one and the same.
you should.
Let's work towards that, and we're part of that. Thank you for joining Mike and myself for another edition of Reclaiming Timeless Ways, and we hope you have a wonderful day.